I'm out driving around today in my 356 and it's driving great. I'd like to give you my driving impressions of the car, even though it might be hard to communicate in video, but I will do my best to tell you how this car is doing. It's really fun. First off, this is a big milestone for me and the car. We made it out to the Porsche 356 Club show on Sunday following the LA Lit Meet. And it was in Chino Hills, great time, a caravan with a couple 911s, and just had an amazing time. We did an after drive, ended up being like 250 miles for its sort of maiden voyage, and you know, the car ran great. If you've been watching these videos for a while, you'll know that everything has been touched on this car. The steering box, the front suspension, all the pivots, all the brakes, the calipers, the rear suspension, the transaxle. The engine's been rebuilt years ago, but it's a fresh engine. Everything has been touched, every square inch has been painted, every system has been checked, so it's practically a new car. Also, I've owned this car for almost 30 years, and this is my first Porsche that I ever bought. So it's definitely a keeper, and it's just so much fun to have it back on the road again. It's been off the road for about half of those years. I used to drive this car. It was a little bit ratty when I first bought it. That's when I did the engine rebuild, but it's, man, it's just good to be back on the road with it. It drives so well. 356s are, I think, so enjoyable to drive. Everything is effortless. The steering is easy. The shifting is easy. I love the sound of that engine, and it's just so fun to drive. I can't really explain it. Visibility is great when you're sitting up high in the seat. It's just so nice. The drivability is just so smooth. I'm just going around like quarter throttle right now, and the car is just like fuel injection almost. That's about a 4,000 RPM shift, and it just keeps going. It just wants to keep going. No hesitation, no hiccup, no anything, no surging, no hunting. It's just really smooth. These Solex carburetors are fantastic once you get them set up. And if you remember from my previous tune-up video, you'll remember that I had a problem with it going lean right away. It was showing up in the air-fuel ratio gauge, and the car would just kind of fall flat. Come to find out, I did change some jetting, but the real problem was I had one of the main auxiliaries turned 180 degrees out. So one of the cylinders was not getting any fuel from the main circuit, and that's why it was surging. So once I rotated that, put it back in, we've done some jet changes, and now it's running fantastic. Right now, I'm just kind of warming up the engine a little bit, just putting around my neighborhood. One of the biggest complaints about 356s is that they're just underpowered. And I find that a lot of them just really aren't tuned up correctly. This one actually goes pretty well. Although I will say the engine is not 100% stock. It is a big bore kit, and it does have a Norris cam. I think it's the 331, but it drives really well. We had a fun time just keeping up with the 911s, but you know, this thing at low speeds was doing just great, and going up the hills, no problem. So I'll try to give you a little taste of the power right here and do a U-turn. It's hard to see the speed on camera, but it was flying. Let's go find a street that we can go a little faster on, and we'll see how it keeps up with traffic, okay? Just coming up to PCH. See if we can find someone to race. We're at a red light now. 2 cars to the next left of me. And they're gone. Let's wait up and see where they are. That was about 7 or 8 car lengths. There they are. You can catch them. There they go. So I realize no one's trying to race me, but this is just the general flow of traffic on PCH, which tends to move pretty quick. Tons of power. So second and third gear, you have absolutely no problem keeping up with cars and traffic. Highway speeds, we were going like 70 on the freeway on ramps. It's not an underpowered car by any means. This one's probably a little over 100 horsepower, but once it's tuned up, they run great. I have no concerns about power on this car. This is 4th gear. We just rolled right past that car. So if you need to pass a car, you need to get around in traffic, no problem. It's actually pretty fun to drive. It's a true sports car. Also right now, the suspension is just floating. It's doing such a good job just giving a comfortable ride, but it's firm enough to where it feels like a sports car, but this car, the suspension is so nice. The idle is super smooth too. The car doesn't shake. It just sits here at an intersection, idling at about 800 RPM, 850, something like that. 3,500 shift. First in line with the red light. Let's see what happens. So I'm out first. That was just a quarter throttle takeoff, nothing hard at all. Shifting is just buttery smooth, so let me show you. Two fingers. Fourth gear does whine just a little bit. I remember when I had the transmission apart, that gear was a little bit more polished than the other ones. So I don't know if I'm going to replace that in the future or not. We'll wait till the interior gets in it, see if it quiets it down a little bit. Higher speeds, it's not so bad. That's about 60, 65. The whine goes away. But at 45 or 50, when you're at low RPMs, there's a bit of a whine. So I don't think it's the ring and pinion because it doesn't make any sound in any of the other gears. It's only fourth gear that whines a little bit. First gear, boom. Second gear. Third gear. And I don't really need fourth gear right now because I'm only at 2,500 RPMs, but super happy with the transmission. I am going to replace the oil Probably with Swepco and see if it shifts even better. This is just cheap break-in oil, regular dyno oil from the hardware store. It's nothing special. Could downshift, no problem. Second gear, no problem. Also, the brakes are working great too. I only bled them once when I first installed them, so there probably is a little bit of air still in the system. So I do want to do another brake bleed, but the pedal's pretty firm. That's it. It goes down about 2 inches, 1.5 inches, and then stays. It's pretty firm actually. And it stops really even. The other thing to note is the steering wheel is super tight. So any small movement in the steering causes the car to turn. There's no play in the steering box at all. And I have yet to do a full alignment on this car. I only just sort of guessed at the toe end and the camber, but it is pretty good. I mean, it tracks straight. I'm not doing anything to the wheel, and the sensitivity is great. So remember in the steering rebox rebuild, we made sure that the gears were adjusted tight. There's a little flat spot where it takes all the play out. I just couldn't be happier with the feel of the steering. This big steering wheel has got so much leverage, and the small tires just make it so delightful to move around. Like I said, you can't have a bad time in one of these 356s. It's just so fun. Double clutch. You hear a little bit of whine from the ring and pinion when you downshift, and it's slowing the car down. You just hear that. There's a little bit of vibration in the steering wheel. I think these tires, are super old, so they need to be replaced, but at the very least rebalanced. So the driving experience of this car is a lot like I remembered. It's just really easy and comfortable. I'd like to get more interior in it and the side windows in just to make it tight and quiet. But man, this thing, you could just go for miles. This thing would go anywhere. I don't think this car came with a radio. It's not on the Cardex, and there's no holes in the body for an antenna. It's got this reproduction block-off plate. When I bought the car in like the mid-90s, it did not have a radio either. I'm looking forward to taking it into some canyon roads too. There's just nothing really around here that's close. We had a little bit of twisty roads on the way to the show in Chino Hills, and it did great, and it was fun. I just don't want to push it with these old tires. It doesn't matter what gear you're in. If you just stab it, it'll go. I've been driving around for about 30 minutes. There has not been a single hiccup with the way the engine runs. It just does whatever you want it to do. You can give it gas whatever RPM you give it gas, it goes. And the faster you go, the smoother the suspension gets. It just takes all the bumps, no problem. It's double clutch downshift, no problem. Actually, the clutch action is really light. It feels simple and easy. It's pretty nice. The only thing that could be improved with the pedal system is the gas pedal is a little bit sticky. So when the car was painted, the tube where the clutch cable or the gas pedal goes through, the cable, I think it's a little gummed up. It needs to be kind of cleaned out, replace the cable, kind of re-lube that. I have not connected the speedometer yet. It just needs the speedometer cable out to the front wheel. I have the cable, I just haven't put it in yet. Everything else works on the gauges. Temperature gauge probably needs to be calibrated. Fuel gauge seems to be working okay. The tachometer is a little bit bouncy. I'd like to improve that someday. This has been converted to electric, and the clock is not working. I'm just starting to get a feel though for what it was like to drive one of these cars when it was brand new, because the driving experience is absolutely wonderful. This is the air-fuel ratio gauge, and I'll do my best to show you how it's doing and what it means. So we're just driving around, real light throttle, and it's like 12.9, 13.0. This is in that idle transition period where it's getting extra fuel from those transition ports. It's a little bit on the rich side, but it runs great. When you give it more gas, it goes rich for a second and then it goes lean. So the smaller the numbers, the richer it is. The bigger the numbers, the leaner it is. 14.7 is for economy, and anything less than that is more rich. The main circuits were tuned with this gauge. I'll show you what happens. Once you get on the mains, it's around 13.5. 13.5 when you're on the mains, and we did change the mains to 135s just because it is still pretty lean. And we'll do a full throttle run. I'll show you exactly what it goes up to. This is about 2,500, full throttle. That was about 13.5. Got second gear, and this will be from 2,000. Just gonna step on it. 13.2, 13.1. All the way to the red line. That was 6,000 RPM. So at lower RPMs, it's around 13.0. Higher RPMs, it's around 13.5. That's where we ended up with. I think I'm done tuning this car. It runs so good. And at idle, it's about 13.2. It likes to be around 12.9, 13.2, something like that. This is fourth gear, just cruising. It's around 13.2. Sometimes it dips into depends where you are on the gas pedal. It like just cracked open, it's about 12.2. When you hit the gas a little bit more, it goes up to like the 13s. And at idle, it takes a little while for it to reach a steady number on the idle. Part of that's because the O2 sensor is behind the muffler, and the other part of it is it just takes a while for the system to reach equilibrium after you've decelerated. When you decelerate, you're putting a lot of air into the cylinders with not much fuel. Also, the throttle response is pretty good. Part of that has to do with the accelerator pump, and we did add some more accelerator squirt to the mix, because if I just give it some gas, you can see how that bar just kind of bounces around. But it's just the right amount of fuel squirted in, because it doesn't rapidly swing and the car doesn't bog or hesitate. So anytime I punch it, especially at the higher RPMs, that squirt is really needed. It depends on the RPM. Sometimes it'll dip down, sometimes it'll dip to the right. And that's when you know you've got it adjusted for the best possible average. So Ian helped me with this. It's fantastic. The other knock about 356s is that the drivability at night is just not that good. But with these Vintage Trader LEDs, it's much better. Actually, it's great. Here's some footage from my friend Shane's camera.
Aren't those headlights? Those headlights are great.
We went for a ride. I wasn't even really aware he was recording. So here's his footage. It's uncut, unedited. His first reaction being in the car just as a passenger. The air fuel ratio is down. Perfect. It's like the perfect amount. I think we're done.
What is the AFR now?
12.8.
That's what?
12.8.
So did I move it from 6 to 8?
Wait.
12.6 to 12.8?
13.2.
13.2 now, but the idle just crept up again. 13.1.
Where is it now?
13.0. They're cool.
13.0. 12.9.
Yeah,
Vintage, you know.
he corrected the color somehow. I don't even.
Oh my gosh, it's so smooth.
The way it idles, I
Just,
know.
just back. No, I mean the suspension just backing out feels so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Oh, look. Oh, it's running so much better.
It runs good. Whatever he did to the accelerator pump, he sort of guessed at it, but I
Right.
don't know, man. It's like, it's perfect. We can't get it to hiccup at all. It just seems
Okay.
like it's just happy.
Right. So you're really comfortable in traffic and taking off.
Oh, yeah. You could just keep up, do whatever. It's getting hard for me to drive with the, see how it doesn't return back? The
Right.
springs are not stiff enough.
They're not stiff enough, right? Yeah.
So just the drivability is not the same, but the,
Yeah.
the carburetor is great.
Oh my gosh. Holy cow. That is peppy.
I know.
That's hard to believe that's a
It's a four-cylinder.
four-cylinder. Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool. This feels so nice. I had no idea this would feel this good. Super smooth ride. I can't feel a single bump in the road. Really, really.
I like how Ian called it the UFO.
Yeah, it's just floating, but sticking.
Yeah.
It's like a super sticky parade float. Yeah, he nailed it with the 135.
Yeah, the springs are just too light.
Yeah. So where do you want your RPMs at idle?
This gauge is not right,
Okay.
but it should be 850, 900, something like that.
All right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, something might have fallen off.
Yeah.
Better head back.
Right. Or not.
Or